Okay, so we have seen that the carbon dioxide emissions and methane and other gases are going to greatly heat up the Earth, and that's going to be a major problem. It's going to heat things up, cause all sorts of problems, and maybe tip us into an entirely new climate situation. So in this set of videos, we're going to talk about what we can do. Decarbonisation. How can we change the world economy so it doesn't produce vast amounts of CO2? So as a reminder, here are some graphs of temperature projections from the IPCC. And we see the temperature is rising fairly rapidly. It's about 1 degree above historic levels. And if we keep things going at similar rates, we'll be talking by the end of the century temperatures 4 or 5 degrees above things. And if you go further out, it gets much, much worse still. And we've also seen that to do something about this, we need to drastically and rapidly cut the carbon dioxide emissions and emissions of other things like methane, but in these videos we're mostly going to talk about CO2 because it's arguably the hardest. So that's gigatons of CO2 emission per year, climbing rapidly up to, this is 2017 I think, and then this is what the currently implemented policies would do if people actually stick to them. But in fact, the real graph has gone higher than any of these things, indicating that many countries are actually not sticking even to their current implemented policies. What we actually need to do is cut things drastically and rapidly. If we limit warming to 2 degrees C, you can see that the emissions have to be cut in roughly half by 2040 and by 80–90% by 2080. So that's going to be a very big ask. The current claims of what countries are going to do is something in this range, which is not enough. So countries are going to have to do more, and they're actually going to have to do it, and not just promise it and then not deliver. We're not going to talk too much about the politics for the moment. We're actually going to talk about the technical side, what actually needs to be done to achieve a graph like this. Okay, so where is our carbon dioxide coming from at the moment? So here is a graph from the International Renewable Energy Agency, IRENA, showing what the carbon emissions are currently coming from. So you can see the biggest part of the pie, 38%, is power. That's electricity generation. So that's the biggest thing, and it's possibly the easiest thing to decarbonise, so it's probably a good thing to work out first. But by itself it's not going to be enough. We're then going to have to look at other things. Down here we have transport of different sorts. The solid colours are things that we know how to decarbonise. The ones with dashed lines are things we don't really currently know how to decarbonise. So things like passenger cars, we can make them electric. Other sorts of vehicles, that's all doable. Things like long distance freight, airliners, ocean transport is going to be much harder. But all this is going to add to the electricity demand, because if you have electric cars, that means this is all going to move over to here. It's going to need to be supplied electricity. Similarly for buildings, there's space heating, keeping buildings warm, water heating, having your hot showers and your hot baths and cooking. And also up here is district heating and cooling. This doesn't happen very much in Australia, but in many other countries there are central plants that pump out heat to buildings all over some part of a city. And again, we know how to decarbonise this, basically replacing heating with heat pumps, cooking with induction cookers. But that's also going to add to the electricity if we do all that. And then there's a wide variety of other things, a lot of industry like iron and steel and cement, which we don't really know how to decarbonise yet. But the basic idea is go for the low-hanging fruit first. We've got to do something as quickly as we can to meet these sort of curves, and the obvious thing is to look at, first of all, electricity generation, and secondly, the other things that can be electrified. So the basic plan is A, decarbonise electricity generation, and that's what we're going to mostly be talking about in these videos. Then we should electrify everything we can electrify. So replace gas heaters with electric heaters, gas hot water with electric hot water, and so on. So electrify the houses, also electrify as much of transport as possible. Some things like airliners are going to be very hard. We'll talk about that later. But electric cars are now perfectly feasible, so there's a lot of it we can electrify right now. And then it's going to get harder. We're going to have to worry about industrial processes, agriculture, and the hard bits of transport like cargo ships and aircraft. And a lot more research and development is needed. But we can't wait for that. We've got to do the easy bits right now.